Hello everyone. Welcome to the Webex Community Live event, focusing on paving the way to the next normal with Webex. Today we have some awesome guests with us, Karen Dean, Munu Gandhi, and Mark Jones. So very excited to have everyone here with us today. So first we're going to go ahead and jump into a couple things Cisco community related. Awesome. So first I want to go through a couple news and upcoming events here in the community. Following this event, we have a live discussion where the conversation about paving the way to the next normal will continue, where we really want to hear what your organizations are doing, or if you have any further questions after this event. So this is the link, and it'll be posted within the Webex adoption community where you can continue that conversation. So definitely make sure to be involved in the conversation. Next, we want to give a shout out to our Spotlight Awards for 2020. Congratulations to some of the winners, and you guys can go ahead and check that out. It'll be in the presentation. We don't want to go too much into it. We really want to invite you guys to become a top contributor in the community. Some of the people in our community, they provide so much resources, so much knowledge, and being able to have those kind of people in our community, it really makes it a much more valuable experience for everybody because we can share more ideas, share more knowledge, and really get to know each other and the Webex brand a little bit. So two, we really want to push out there that we want people to rate content in the Cisco community. That really helps people find the most relevant and most impactful content that they can find. And so first, I want to welcome you all to the Webex community. I'm the Webex community manager here. My name is Cole Callahan. And before we jump into this, I'd really like to highlight some features of this event. First of all, attendees will be in listen-only mode. Second of all, if you guys have questions during the event about any content, make sure that you post that in the Q&A chat tab. We'll open up for questions and they'll be answered live when we can get to them. We really do want this conversation to continue. So as mentioned, please join the conversation, the discussion thread that we mentioned before. And we will do our best to get to all of those questions as well. Whether it's your first time in the Webex community or you're a regular user, I really want to welcome you to this event and the Webex online community, the home where customers come to engage with one another, ask questions, share knowledge, submit product ideas, and really explore the world of Webex. Personally, for myself, I am thrilled to have you all here, and I'm thrilled to be organizing this event. So welcome to our first community event. As you know, this event is about paving the way to the next normal with Webex, but really, what is the new normal? What defines the new normal? So, due to recent events, it's fair to say that the workplace really has forever changed, transforming when, where, and really even how we work. In or out of the office, team collaboration is vital for organizations to succeed. And here at Cisco, we do believe there's no better team collaboration, and we can do better in the future right now. So what if we decide to fully embrace this exciting new time, this exciting new way to work, and use technologies, powerful ones like Webex, to drive our businesses forward, enable impactful communication, and facilitate effortless collaboration? You see, the next normal comes with many more questions than just that. And today we are so lucky to have speakers that are here to share how their work has transformed and how their organizations are transitioning into this next normal of work. With that being said, I'd really love to introduce the guests we have here today. So first we have Munu Gandhi, who's the VP of Core Infrastructure Services at Aon. And we also have Karen Dean, Senior Manager of Collaboration Services at Under Armour. And then we have Mark Jones, Training and Development Manager at the National Health Service. So first we'll be hearing from Karen, and Karen's going to share with us Under Armour's vision for collaboration that lives up to the promise of the Under Armour brand. Second, we have Munu Gandhi, who will be detailing Aon's rapid transition into the next normal and how technology has helped shape their team collaboration. And then as we hear from Mark, he'll share with us how healthcare is being delivered in a new way. And he will reveal some key questions that organizations should be asking themselves as they look towards these next steps. So before we get into that, I want to go ahead and pose a question. Pose a question that organizations should be thinking about, and it's something that we'll learn from as well. So for me, I'd like to hear, when do you expect your organization to make formal plans for returning to work? Do you see it in the next 2 to 4 weeks, 1 to 3 months from now, end of year, or you're just not sure? Maybe you haven't had that conversation. So if you want to go ahead and get that polling question up and go ahead and submit answers on the side tab, that would be awesome. And we'll go ahead and give you guys a little bit to submit your responses. Awesome. Thank you guys for taking the poll. So without further ado, I'd really like to go ahead and jump into our first presenter, who is our good friend, Karen Dean. Karen, take it away.
Thank you so much to you and to Cisco for inviting me to be a part of this. It's really exciting. And I think, we're all better when we can share information together. So I love the concept of the Cisco community and holding these events. I hear people talk about evolving to the next normal and transitioning to the next normal. I feel like we have just catapulted into the next normal. The next normal was here before we even knew what to call it. So it's been a very crazy few months for Under Armour, as I'm sure it has been for all of you. Okay, Cole, you. I'll just kind of do a tiny bit of a little history review for Under Armour. We were founded in 1996 by Kevin Plank when he was an athlete at the University of Maryland and was just not happy with how his kind of fitness and some of the training garments that he was wearing, just wasn't happy with how they were performing to him. So from the basement of his grandmother's garage, or his grandmother's house and her garage, he started Under Armour 24 years ago. And so through our really short history as a company, we've really become a leading inventor, marketer, and distributor of our branded athletic gear, as well as our we have the largest digital fitness community with the MyFitnessPal and MapMy platforms of fitness applications, which really help us, really advance our cause and in driving human performance and supporting our goal to make all athletes better. We sell Under Armour products in over 100 countries. We have about 14,000 teammates, and we inspire athletes with products and solutions they never knew they needed and can't imagine living without. And that's what we try to do in our collaboration stack as well. It's kind of a lofty goal, but that's what we try to do. So in 24 years, our company just grew exponentially. When you're a small company, you want to get something in the market and then you just want to grow and get bigger. And so that's kind of what happened. What happens in the technology foundations a lot of times is, you get big fast and you buy lots of stuff and you put it all out there, and then at some point you sort of need to take a step back and figure out, okay, what are the right solutions that will really allow me to achieve the level of integration that I need and to be able to scale the need that in the way that we needed to. So we were at a place several years ago where we'd had just this exponential growth. We had all these products, but they were frustrating our teammates, right? It would take 10 to 15 minutes to get a meeting started. There'd be can you hear me? No, I can't hear you. Can you see me? No, I can't see you. It was just challenging for our teammates to even get to the point where they could start to do the work they had come together to do. We had a lot of different apps with overlapping features. Some of our technology was on-premise, some was in the cloud, and so we were really limited in how we could bring all those pieces together, much less how we could kind of look to integrate it with other systems and take advantage of other opportunities that would evolve with our other ERP systems. So, if Cole, you go to the next slide. A few years ago, we introduced the UA Huddle brand of collaboration tools for Under Armour. So we really put all of that together, and it really creates our vision for real-time collaboration. We demand that it be frictionless, that it really kind of live up to the objective of being human-centric technologies, and it's really about delivering things that people never knew they needed and now can't imagine living without it. it really helps us focus in on our vision for and on about athletes, and it really underpins our belief that our teammates are at the core of what makes Under Armour successful. Okay, Cole. So our first UA Huddle product delivery was Webex. We implemented Webex globally in about 2015, 16 or so. You can kind of see our landscape. We've got multiple call manager clusters regionally around the world that are all interconnected, and gradually scaled our connect more than about 500 video codecs and other specialty spaces integrated into this. It really, the way we approached this initially was to deploy this in a very standardized manner. I would even say beyond standardized, a very prescriptive manner, so that there was a lot of standardization across how you join a meeting, what devices we use and which types of conference rooms and all of that. And so through the course of time, you can kind of see the exponential growth in our usage of WebEx and meetings and minutes and all of that, while at the same time, we've been to squeeze down the time each teammate spends in any given meeting, because their ability to join them and run the meetings effectively has just really improved through these years. Okay, Cole, next. But we sort of knew that we were still missing something. We were still using Jabber. We obviously were using Call Manager. We had a video endpoints. We realized that we still needed something to glue all together and to be a more persistent, to kind of present a more persistent platform for collaboration. We last year on an effort to deploy Webex Teams globally, really looking toward that to be the platform, the platform that people sort of live in every day. So one thing I should have mentioned is that a part of our uses Slack. So a lot of the software developers who are in our digital organization have had kind of a legacy heritage of using Slack, and we were sort of creating an environment unwittingly that sort of isolated them sort of on an island, and so it caused people who needed to take in both platforms have to build up this stack of apps, which was kind of just flying in the face of what we were trying to do with bringing it all together. So it was key that we were able to deploy a solution that would would really truly be the glue, not just across our legacy Cisco applications and platforms, but also include that as well. So we launched Webex Teams. We had a long kind of planning cycle, had focused a lot on what kind of adoption we would need. We ran sessions in our cafeteria. We had, logo, UA Huddle logo, mouse pads created, the whole deal. And we launched Webex Teams on March 2nd. And then you can probably flip to the next slide, or actually we could stay on this one another minute, Cole, sorry. And then 10 days later, on March 12th, that was our last day in the office. That was and still is our last day in the office. And so what ended up happening is much of the sort of adoption materials and efforts that we had put together, we ended up sort of the silver lining, I guess, not really needing them because necessity is the mother of invention, and everybody really just grabbed onto Teams as their sort of one-stop shop for all their collaboration requirements. Okay, Cole, now you can flip to the next one. So literally just in the nick of time, we deployed Teams. This is kind of just a I don't know, sort of the Jeopardy wheel view of our ecosystem, and really we're unifying all of our real-time tools, all of our real-time kind of all the features that we need under the Webex Teams and Webex brand. So this is what happened. I mean, the numbers on this chart aren't really so important, but every chart I could show you with number of meetings, number of meeting minutes, number of users, number of team spaces, messages, all the charts look exactly like this, where we had kind of a bump when we installed and went live, and then once we went to remote working, we just, you know, skyrocketed out. I mean, in these numbers, this is only through the end of March, So imagine where these numbers are now. It's just continuing. There seems to be no end in sight to the appetite for meeting and collaboration. So it's really been great. Probably, you know, to me, even more important than the increase in kind of our metrics, which we do track, you know, kind of all the time. But what's really happened is, what's really exciting for us is the way we've been able to transform a lot of other types of collaboration and all the kind of the way of working across Under Armour. So clearly there's, you know, remote and flexible work. We all had the flexibility to work remotely when we needed to, but our work habits were very much office centric. We have amazing offices, amazing workspaces. They're very inspirational and conducive to the work that we all do. And so being able to kind of carry that with us from our living rooms or our dining room tables, as the case is in my situation, being able to extend that to our remote working places. I mean, we have had executives who repeatedly say that Under Armour has not missed a beat with you know, kind of what we've been going through, and in fact, maybe this will come up later when we have kind of more of a conversation, but there are many of our executives who believe that we are more productive now than we were before. So I don't know if they've got you know, specific ways that they're measuring that, or if that's sort of an anecdotal thing. But one of the things that we've done, that we launched into immediately after we went to remote working, was having to repurpose a lot of virtual events, a lot of on-site events in a virtual way. So town hall meetings, training sessions that typically would be done in our Armour University are now virtual. So really exercising a lot of the additional capabilities on the Webex platform to do all of that. The virtual selling, there are 2 cycles during the Under Armour year where we are introducing to first to our own teammates and then to our wholesale customers our product lines for, you know, a year out, the upcoming kind of 1 year out product line. These were always events that we'd hold in our amphitheater in Baltimore. We'd bring hundreds and hundreds of teammates in. We'd stage fashion shows. We'd have athlete visits. It was a very immersive event. And we just wrapped up the first ever virtual summit for the spring, summer 2021 season. We just wrapped that up last week. totally on the Webex platform. So we had the Webex platform, we had a combination of other virtual selling tools, 3D samples, all kinds of virtual tools coming together to deliver that event globally to all of our regions. And now all of our sales teams are using Webex meetings to conduct these same types of virtual selling events to all of their accounts back in their home regions. So that's a really exciting thing, and we're going to be kind of doing a large-scale debrief on that whole process, and looking forward to how we can make it better now for the fall/winter 21 season. We're also creating virtual showrooms where we have very immersive, almost I would call them in my simple mind, sort of IMAX type experiences in our virtual showrooms where we bring our key accounts and customers in. These have historically been done in a physical room, and now we're looking at how to recreate some of those, how to really democratize, I guess you could say, some of those virtual showroom experiences, so that people don't have to travel as far, number one, and we can do more of that virtually. And then finally, kind of we're using a lot of the analytics now that are in our codecs, and in some of the technology, the collaboration technology that we have, to really help inform our corporate real estate team, with whom we work very closely, to give them feedback on how their conference rooms are being used and what the booking ratios are and all of that. I think that will be particularly important as we look at going back into our offices at some point later this year, because I believe that there's going to be a lot of, kind of revisiting what does the office look like, and what do we do in the office versus what do we do elsewhere. And so I think a lot of these things are really going to inform that, that planning process. So there's a lot ahead of us. It's really exciting, and I can only, I try to imagine what's in the future now, and I'm not even sure that I'm all that qualified to do that, because every day I get another call about, hey, I had this idea. We used to do it this way. Could we do it that way? And off we go again. And it's another, each doorway leads to another doorway that we're continuing to catapult ourselves through. So with that, I will wrap up my part of this session.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Karen. I do have one follow-up question to your presentation. And I know the biggest transition in my mind is just getting a mass of people to move over to a new style of working. So what has the flexibility been like with the employees within Under Armour? What does that look like? Have they been pretty adaptive to it? Have had to change their ways of learning? What's that look like?
I think we already had, kind of leading into this last quarter, we did have a very high adoption rate for the Webex platform and kind of the some of the surrounding capabilities. So we don't use, people at Under Armour, we don't give people phones anymore. We give them a headset and a computer and say, away you go. So I think people were already comfortable with Webex. It was really just, I don't know what we would be doing if we hadn't so luckily launched Teams right before that. I mean, I think that's, I look back now and I think, oh my God, what if we had waited another week or another 2 weeks? How would we, it just seems, we were just lucky. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And I think we definitely hit the nail on the head with that one. But yeah, I think people have adapted to the way of working really well. I think what we're all challenged with and what we're all exercising now is how to use the tools we have in completely different ways, and exercising new features of those tools and everything. So I think it's it's really accelerated much of where we were headed. We just are, going there a lot faster than we had all thought.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for sharing that with us, Karen. I think that was a really, really incredible story to see how see how Under Armour has really transformed in this very interesting time. And it's really interesting to think about all the questions that you guys are thinking about moving forward. So before we go ahead and get into Munu's presentation, everyone, I do have another polling question come up. We'll give it about a minute for people to respond to it, but we'll be here. So thank you, Karen. I appreciate it. And we'll talk to you very soon, of course.
Sure, you're welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting that people are looking towards the future of this, and a lot of people answered yes. So very interesting to think that people are starting to see their digital infrastructure really as maybe not a new investment, but at least a big part of their long-term investment plan. Very cool. So thank you guys for responding. So next we'll go ahead and move on to speaking with our friend Munu.
So thanks everybody, and thank you to Cole and the Cisco team for the invitation. I'm going to spend a few minutes today talking about our journey to the new better. Just a quick introduction. Again, my name is Munu Gandhi. I lead core infrastructure services for Aon. So that includes our data centers, our networks, and our unified communications and collaboration platforms. The ones that we utilize and leverage Cisco for. And before we get into the presentation, I want to thank the entire global team at Aon that has been working on these platforms and these programs over the last few years. It's through their hard work and dedication and effort that we've achieved the results that we have. And then a special thanks to John Witt for helping build this presentation out for me, without which we would not be here today. So thanks, John. So with that, Cole, if we could go to the next slide. So just a quick a summary about who we are as Aon. As you can see, we're the leading global professional services firm, providing advice and solutions in risk, retirement, and health. And in a world in which risks continue to increase, whether they're pandemics or geopolitical uncertainty, Aon's platforms and the insights we derive, they enable our clients to manage and mitigate those challenges and focus in on their business. We're an amalgamation of over 400 acquisitions over the past 30 plus years, and we've brought them together under our strategy and by implementing the Aon United operating model. And we've spent a lot of time and focus on the integration challenges and opportunities of stitching the fabric of 400 acquisitions and how we can then leverage those capabilities to more effectively support our colleagues so that they can serve our clients. Next slide, please. So here's a quote from our CEO. Lots of people have talked about the new normal, and the thing that Greg really focused in on very early as we were going through the current situation was, this is our opportunity not to just go to a new normal, but let's get to a new better. A new better for our clients, and a new better for enabling our colleagues to more effectively serve those clients. And then when you abstract that back from a technology perspective, we really, over the last few years, have focused in on the 3 C's. How do we help our colleagues connect, communicate, and collaborate? From a connect perspective, coming back to those 400 acquisitions, it was getting and creating a network fabric that allowed our colleagues, no matter where they were in the world, and no matter where they were going across the world, to easily connect and access their resources. And when we thought through that strategy, we looked through our best case scenario, worst case scenarios, and we actually planned for black swan events. Now, we didn't plan for the one that we're in right now, but what that forced us to do was think about creating significant capacity across our strategic locations across the globe. So when overnight, similar to what Karen talked about, we went from almost everybody in our offices to almost 100% of our colleagues working remotely, we have the ability and the capability to quickly turn on the spigot and enable them. The next thing we focused on was communications. how do we ensure that our colleagues could talk to each other in a number of different fashions, but in a consistent, standard way? How could they communicate with our clients and our clients communicate with us? And how could we also communicate with our partners so that we could bring even better solutions to the marketplace and more effectively serve our clients? And finally, we thought about collaboration and really the transformation of how we bring together disparate capabilities, disparate resources into one unified mechanism to enable our colleagues to more effectively collaborate, again, not just internally, but with our clients and our partners. One slide back, thanks. And as we thought through that, we selected the Cisco platform to be a part of that journey, to enable us and to deploy those platforms. Before we started, again, because of all of the acquisitions, we had a ton of conferencing solutions, a number of calling platforms, and we really didn't have a collaboration capability. And so as we went through this process, we had some of the same challenges that Karen talked about. You'd have meetings that started where people would dial into one platform and use another platform for sharing. And inevitably, you'd have a 50% split of people on one or the other. And you'd lose 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes of productivity before you were able to call, text, instant message people to get them onto the right platform. And so we had 6, 7, 8 of these platforms, and we deployed Webex meetings across the globe for all 50,000 of our colleagues in 2018. And overnight, that confusion went away. The number of platforms went away, and our productivity went up. In 2019, we went and deployed the Cisco hosted calling platform, which allowed us to remove a significant amount of legacy technical debt that we had, multiple providers, the complexity that brings, and the high costs. In addition, it allowed our colleagues to now be able to, with one touch, call any of their colleagues across the globe that were on this platform. It also allowed us to transition from a hardware-based call flow to a software-based call flow. And in those regions that adopted the software platform, little did they know that a few months later, it was going to be the savior for how they enable their colleagues to be productive and reach out to our clients. And then, similar to Karen, we started working on the Webex Teams deployment and enabling a whole bunch of features so that our colleagues could collaborate. And I'll get into how we did that and when we did that in the next couple of slides. But again, very fortuitous, not planned, but very lucky that we had done the hard work so that when we needed it, we were able to quickly deploy Webex Teams. And so you can see some of the results. From January 1st, where 90% of our colleagues were based in a physical office, to March 12th, it's funny how we all have the same date, 98% of our colleagues went working remotely. And that transition happened seamlessly, with no productivity impact. In fact, we also saw some of the productivity gains that Karen mentioned. Our colleagues no longer had 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour commutes, right? Now, they did have other challenges, same challenges that we've all had: childcare, parent care, spouse care, multiple people working in the same home, right? But through that, because they had the tools and the connectivity, they were able to work day one and increase their productivity. Our access and utilization of Webex meetings went up almost 400%. This is not just the internal connectivity and communications and collaboration. This is with our partners and our clients as well. And to Cisco's credit, Within a 4-week period, they tripled their capacity. You know, and I think about if I had to triple the data centers that I had across the globe, how much of a challenge that would be. But they continued to stay ahead of the demand curve. And we kept coming with the demand. Video increased. You can see it increased over 300% just in the number of meetings that were utilized, but it increased 900% in the meeting minutes. So video minutes increased 9x from January 1st. And this was because people felt that if I was on video, I connected with my peers, with my clients, with my partners more effectively, right? And so they turned on the video, right? And then you can see Webex Teams, something we were just in the process of piloting, and something we had planned for a 6-month deployment towards the end of this year. We rapidly shifted course, and we turned on the switch and said, everybody can connect in, download Webex Teams, and start collaborating. And you can see the numbers, 100x plus on the number of colleagues that are using it, and about the same on the number of messages that are going across, right? Now, some of the insights. We did see the pendulum swing, right? So people oftentimes had nothing to do but work. And so they dove in. And so people were working more. We were getting more productivity. We have actually asked our colleagues to pull back. Take some time, whether it's time off, whether it's time back in the day, because there has to be a better work-life balance, right? We've worked on our operating model. But the new better is not one in which we go back to 90% of our colleagues in the office. Now, we don't know what that number will be, but we know it won't be 90. And so how do we ensure that our workforce has an operating model for how they work? And I'll share a little bit of the technology side of it, but it's not just technology. It is, how often are we checking in with colleagues? How are we doing teams? How are we providing work to our colleagues? And how are we checking in on status, right? We're starting to see now video fatigue. So as much as people engaged and got on video in those first few weeks and months, we're starting to see a little bit of a pullback, right? And we think that's healthy. And we think that that's happening because we now have offline collaboration capabilities so they can work asynchronously. They don't need to be on the phone or on a call all day long. And we think that's healthy, right? And again, as I think about the operating model, and Cole, we can segue to the next slide, there's a number of things that we've done around that. So optimizing the team working model, right? How should teams work? How big should teams be? How often should we check in? How should we provide status? How should we do one-on-ones? These are all questions that we asked, and we have an entire organization that has not just been supporting Aon colleagues, but our clients, right? Maintaining communication effectiveness, check-ins, whether they're one-on-ones, whether they're group check-ins, having leaders do skip level check-ins, right? And then creating this new culture. When you're not in the office, when you're not next to the person, when you can't just pull somebody in, when you can't just walk across the hall, how do we ensure we can replicate those things that we're used to in a physical way and move it into the virtual world, right? And this is where, as we have deployed Webex Teams, you know, we've talked about the one app to rule them all, where we bring communications and collaboration together, where we bring it to you on your laptop and on your mobile and on your tablet. And it doesn't matter where you are, you should be able to communicate and collaborate with whomever you want on any device in a very simplified manner. And you can also progress. So you can go from an instant message to a call, one-on-one call, to a, hey, I need to pull in these other two people. Let's set up a meeting, to let's whiteboard, to let's share this content on a PowerPoint. And then let's ensure that we can live and breathe that on a continuous basis. All right? So let's, Cole, let's go to the last slide. There's asynchronous communications and synchronous communications. Very simple. We have been spending a lot of time with our different organizations within Aon to help them think about, how do I leverage the Webex Teams platform to most optimally leverage these capabilities so they can take advantage of that. I'm going to share one example. So we have our sales organization in EMEA that would bring various aligned businesses together to have one proposal for our clients. So across risk, retirement, and health, and data and analytics, how do we come together? Well, the way they did it in the online physical world or the offline physical world was, let's get together for 2 or 3 days. Let's fly everybody in from the various business units. Let's have facilitated discussions and meetings. Let's create the work product and proposals, and then let's disband and send it to our clients. Well, very quickly, we couldn't do any of that. And by the way, it's really difficult to get senior leaders and sales execs together for 3 days. It's pretty expensive to do that. And we lost the ability to retain any of that knowledge because it was all done in the physical world. And so as we moved everything to Teams, we helped them create a process where they could do the offline prep asynchronously, working across geographies, where they could then come together in online sessions to finalize the work product and the proposals. And then they can do offline follow-up. And the benefit of this is we help them create team and space constructs so they could leverage this again and again and again and again. And they had the knowledge that was now sitting centrally, which they could reuse for future proposals. And this has been a huge hit for them because it's made them more productive and it's allowed them to work in the synchronous fashion when they need to quickly come together and to leverage the asynchronous platform capabilities when they need to. And so with that, I would leave us with, we are absolutely in new times. We have the opportunity to significantly accelerate the digital transformation. Collaboration and communication platforms are the underlying platform that's going to make all of that happen. And if we do this right, if we serve our colleagues effectively, they will be able to more effectively serve their clients, our clients, and truly evolve and transform into this new better. So with that, thank you very much. I appreciate the time. Cole and the Cisco team, thank you for hearing our story, or letting us share our story.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Munu. We actually have a question in our QA chat that said, did you set up daily adoption/training sessions to get the 98% of your employees to speed up to the use of the technology, or what did that look like?
Yeah, great question. So, the 98%, we were able to get them connected in, overnight. Because we had been on Webex meetings, they knew how to use the Webex meetings platform. That truly, was a no-brainer. The voice platform we had done last year, so they were able to quickly move from, they were able to quickly just continue to utilize their soft phones, quite honestly. In the web, we did a significant amount of training. However, and this is one of the lessons learned, is we went from an environment in which we would take 6 months to deploy, where we would spend a lot of time, effort, and energy on change management and individualized training for our colleagues, to 6-week deployment with self-learning. So we gave them a lot of video tutorials that Cisco and our partner Verizon gave us. And we did set up training where they could go on, but these were mass trainings, right? Some where we had 400, 500, even 1,000 people on there. And what we saw was our colleagues fully accept this new better and be willing to accept that the technology adoption and the cycle of adoption has changed, and that whatever I did personally with my own tablet and downloading apps, or my own phone downloading apps and learning that on my own, I can actually do that at work. And so we've been super impressed with our colleagues that they did that. And so we have been supporting with official training, but they really have done a lot of the hard work on their own.
Wow, that's incredible, Munu. Thanks for answering that one live for us and sharing the story of Aon. Appreciate it. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, we are going to move into our last polling question of the event, but then we will move on to our good friend Mark Jones of NHS. So the polling question is your organization going to be fully remote, flexible remote / in office, or in office only in the future? I know this is a question. I have actually not been in the office yet since working here at Cisco, so this is an interesting question for ourselves. All right, guys, thanks for submitting the results there. Very interesting stuff. We will go ahead and move on to our last panelist, which is Mark Jones from the National Health Service UK. So we'll go ahead and move on.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, if you want to go ahead and present yourself really quick, I'll stop sharing my screen.
No problem at all. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark Jones. I'm the T3 Training and Development Manager here at the NHS in Kent in the UK. And sort of give you an overview of sort of where I'm coming from, I was brought onto the trust to implement the training and development strategy for a new clinical system, which is called Allscripts Sunrise. And up until we sort of went into a lockdown situation, the target audience was around 6,800 staff. We'd already trained around 2,200, and then obviously everything changed. Now, at the heart of what I'm going to share with you, we could not be where we are today in the NHS and deal with the crisis that we've had here were it not for the technology, the insightful IT and trust leadership. And that is first and foremost. And that's really what has enabled us to get to the position that we are today.
You want to go? Can you go and explain what your trust system is, really quick?
Yes, of course. So the NHS Trust, the UK is broken into over 60 trusts. Each trust in the NHS is broken down into hospitals. So East Kent Hospital University Foundation Trust is primarily broken into 5 hospitals. Each hospital specialises in particular clinical care. We've got trauma, we've got acute and other care facilities around the region. We have a hospital at Bucklands in Dover, one at Folkestone, one in Ashford, one at Margate, and one in Canterbury, which is where I'm beaming live to you right now. So a few moments ago, I mentioned to you about the technology and the fact that it was really at the heart of where we are today. So Cole, if you can go to the technology slide for me briefly. So just to give you some insight, this is the breakdown or infrastructure of our hospital's IT infrastructure. So we're basically made up of approximately 8,000 staff with various disciplines, clinical, non-clinical. We've got around 5,000 desktop systems. We've got around 1,500 to 1,600 laptops, 2,300 mobile phones, and around 300 iPads. Now, going into the current climate that we've got, we were working on sort of deploying around 130 to 140 licenses of the Cisco Webex solution. What then happened sort of 8 to 10 days after we went into lockdown is there was this shift, and we started to note some really interesting observations. Some of the observations that we noted were the way in which information was being shared, the idea that Meeting Center as a collaborative tool was available to all trust staff, started to spread across the hospitals, and people started to utilize it. So on the next slide, I've just itemized just a couple of those things that we've actually started to see. The main ones are technological awareness. Now, if you can imagine a hospital that's got around 8,000 staff in it, getting messages to those 8,000 staff about what to do, the processes, procedures, change, everything is going to be somewhat of a headache. So people became more aware of what technology was available, which is something we've never seen before, because naturally people don't associate frontline nursing care and technology. And you've got to remember also that a lot of the trust staff that we have on the front line deliver primary care. You know, they're at the forefront of working with patients day in, day out, not necessarily technology. So that was one of the key shifts that we saw, lots more awareness around technology, that Webex and other collaborative solutions were available. We then started to see a lot of communication initiatives. You know, the trust started to announce on a regular basis that we were going to have regular update meetings, because we had to keeping our frontline staff very well informed about what was working with patient care and clinical decisions, as well as the day-to-day sharing of information. Our clinical teams, which were wide and varied, because obviously 5 hospitals, lots of different care groups and disciplines, then started to interact with each other in ways that they'd never interacted before, because they're in different sites. So it's almost kind of out of sight, out of mind. You kind of have a hospital mentality, you work with your immediate teams. But then we saw this shift of people starting to communicate more using different technologies like Jabber, combining it with meetings, escalating things up to make clinical decisions, and the use of iPads and so forth. As iterated by Munu and Karen, when it comes to the education side, we've got a learner management system here today, which is Moodle, and it's only recently been made publicly available to frontline staff in the last 5 to 6 weeks. And that was a really key decision in where we are today with regards to our technology and strategy and where we're going for the new better. Because when you go from some of the figures I'm about to share with you in a moment, it was absolutely essential that we were able to train and educate staff on how this technology works so that we could leverage. But at the time before the crisis hit, we didn't really have a publicly available solution to leverage the workforce to get the time to learn and study, because if they went home or used their home laptops, they had no access to a platform where they could learn about WebEx and Jabber and so forth. So those were sort of some of the observations that we observed in sort of the opening sort of 6 to 8 weeks of the lockdown, and we've probably achieved more in the last 2 months than we could have possibly have hoped for in the last 2 years. If you can go to the next slide for me, please, Cole. Just to give you an indication of sort of where we are with figures, this is what we've seen since the lockdown occurred. So here I've kind of broken down all of the sort of key figures which I've been able to track based on the Cisco WebEx Hub and our learner management system. So there should be some bar charts there, Charles. There we go. So coming into the lockdown, the orange values indicate where we were. So I had 1,292 registered users on the learner management system. And over the last 8 weeks, that has now spiked to over 3,700. So that's a 65% increase. Our licenses, well, because we put communication initiatives in place, the trust management and the medical directors, it was imperative that we could hit more people. And what WebEx has enabled to do for us is to really accelerate not only the growth of the number of people that we can reach, but the number of meetings that we're now having is just starting to go off the chart. So we came into the crisis at 130 licenses. As of yesterday, that's now 520. Our average meetings, you know, going into this, we had around 2,700 meetings. Now we're at 7,500 nearly. As Muna mentioned, the video side of things, you know, massive. We've gone up to 4,600 plus video enabled meetings to have that connection and sharing and collaboration that's really needed. But the big one for us, which was really important to us, is, you know, the working from home pre the current situation to where we are today. And that number is spiked even further. Before the situation we're in, it was 50 to 60 people working at home on average. As of yesterday, we're at 900. And one of the other shifts that we've started to see is around staff engagement. There's, owing to the Cisco WebEx technology and the different mediums of collaboration, we're really starting to see this shift of togetherness, camaraderie, teamwork, engagement. And that's really led us to a number of different benefits that you can see on the right-hand side here. So we've got teams working in ways that they've never worked with before. Communication and collaboration and decision-making is off the charts. Growth in awareness of Cisco Webex technology has been just phenomenal. It's, you know, more than I could have ever hoped for. The time management side, we're now able to be more responsive to situations, both clinical and non-clinical, because owing to the learner management system, we've been able to, or my team have been able to craft training programs that teach staff how to utilize, you know, personal meeting rooms for that instant, I need a clinical decision from an expert, from another person that's somewhere else in the trust in another hospital. Get them on a call, video call. We've got Wi-Fi throughout the hospital, which is very strong and secure. Our infrastructure here is excellent. And that's led to better decisions, but also better patient care. Where we have a lot of people previously telecommuting, we've also now experienced a lot of time management in not having to telecommute, but also administrative cost savings, because all of those expenses that those staff would ordinarily be claiming, they're not claiming anymore. So the administrative toll on the business is significantly less, and we're spending more time focusing and sharing and working for other teams and assisting other teams deal with the other current situations. As a hospital, we are always taking on new staff, doctors, nurses, healthcare assistants, therapists. So it was really important that we couldn't draw that to a halt. So virtual team meetings and virtual interviews using personal meeting rooms is something that allowed us to continue that recruitment when we lost people to sickness and health. In the UK, we've obviously got the tracker for those persons that have and have not acquired the infection. We had a doctor situation the other day where one person went down sick, but because they were in contact with 14 other people who were also doctors, they now have to put themselves into isolation. So because we've got this collaborative technology, regardless of whether staff are in isolation or not, they can still have a valid input into the decision-making process using collaborative technology. Another key part of this as well is also to do with our onboarding of staff. How do you get bank staff and agency staff as well as full-time staff up to speed? And this has also been a great thing with Cisco Webex, because we've been able to leverage Cisco Webex personal rooms, meeting center, training center, and event center to bring people up to speed through webinars, online and virtual trainings. What does that mean for us as a trust? So this has been going on now for sort of 8 to 10 weeks, and we know that innovation is change that unlocks new value. So we're starting to ask ourselves some really interesting questions based on what we've experienced and what we can learn. So we're asking ourselves, for example, what did we used to do? What are we not going to do anymore? What are we going to start doing? And I think one of the things that sparked in conversation is, what is the new normal going to be like for our trust? And I think what we're seeing at the moment is we're seeing a big cultural shift in the togetherness and working together as teams and the greater camaraderie. There's a greater willingness now to share experiences with the technology that is Cisco Webex. I think people are starting to ask more questions about Webex and what it can actually do for them in their day-to-day job, but also what does that mean for them going forwards with regards to working from home? Does that now give us the opportunity to then start asking questions? Well, I'm working on the front line, but when I'm off, I can still collaborate with fellow colleagues. And is that something I can do on a more permanent basis? And there's a lot more reflection and evaluation going on at the moment with various staff members with regards to their lives and what they value the most. When it comes to the system, I think Cisco Webex for us has been a massive enabler. So owing to CEO-led webinars, we increased our licenses from a 200 attendance to 1,000 attendance, which massively escalated our reach. So where I alluded to earlier about asking certain questions about what is going to be the new future, the new norm, the Trust Board of Directors have already announced that utilizing webinar and collaborative meeting technology is definitely something that we're going to do on a more permanent basis, and potentially increase the numbers even more so that we can keep all of our staff informed. We're then looking at coaching and mentoring. Obviously, we've all been at home for a long period of time, but I've still been able to coach and mentor various staff with whom I work. I've run virtual recruitment with various staff members. We're doing virtual clinical inductions, so we're still able to recruit our workforce. And we're starting to see a virtual learning shift with regards to face-to-face learning. And I think that comes into a slide I'm going to talk to you about in just a few moments. With regards to the process side of things, I think staff are actually starting to take a pause, and they're starting to understand how they can leverage the technology and look at how they work and how they process information. How can they use this technology to aid them to make better decisions, better clinical decisions, which ultimately lead to a greater understanding of the patient's needs through shared information and offer a faster and more efficient healthcare experience. And I think these are all sort of conversational topics that a lot of us are going to start talking about in the next few weeks, and what we embed as kind of the new future or the new better. One of the things that's kind of sparked some key questions for me is, if working from home does now become the new normal and staff are getting this opportunity through changes in policy and HR, what does that mean for the organization? So the first thing that we need to look at here is, and learnings that we've acquired from this are around the technology infrastructure. So just like Manu and his team went literally overnight from just having sort of a handful of staff to then almost 98% of the workforce, we was able to do the same sort of things. But the thing that we're struggling with at the moment is the technology, because we didn't anticipate the impact that the current climate was going to have on us. We've now got queues and waiting lists for laptop USB headset technology. So if this is going to be something of more permanence going forwards, then we then need to make sure that we've got the infrastructure and we've got the capability to facilitate it. That then leads on to looking at the financial aspect. Excuse me, apologies. Sorry about that. So that starts to look at the financial aspects of what it's going to actually cost to implement that. Now, on the flip side of that, you can also start to look at the savings. So what savings do we get from this? We get the fact that we've got people that aren't traveling, we've got productivity, we've got performance. We might get benefits for large corporate organizations around CO2 and carbon emissions as well. But another key question here also relates to the non-use of utilities. Because if now staff are starting to work from home on a more frequent basis, do we need the office space that we're in? Which means that we then get back extra bonuses of cost reductions around gas, water, electric, and heating. But I think one final thing to sort of focus on, just in conclusion of this particular topic, is if we go down the avenue of actually giving a lot of people the working from home opportunity, then it's absolutely imperative that we offer them the help and support to do that properly, that we give them the right training, we teach them best practices, we give them the opportunity to have breaks throughout the day, we teach them how to structure their day, and we take care of their mental health. Because one of the risks that we have, and I'll hold my hands up on this myself, is that it's very easy to smudge your day because you're in a familiar environment. You know, for the last 8 to 10 weeks, we've all been at home. So we kind of drop in and out of work and home life, and we start to draw those associations of, you know, what's the office and what's the kitchen and the dining room, and it all sort of just becomes, I'll sort of pick up work, drop work, and then you get extra long days, which may not be particularly helpful with regards to your own personal and mental health. So we have those kind of things to factor in also. I think one of the things that's really going to be a focus point for myself going forwards, and I've already started to have conversations with a lot of clinical doctors and consultants in conclusion to my presentation here, is where do we go with face-to-face training? At the moment, we're 2,200 staff in. I've still got another 5,000 staff to train and educate on a clinical system. How am I actually going to be able to do that myself with my team. But also we've now got the frontline clinical workforce who are also tasked with delivering training presentations doing the same thing. They're now coming to us and saying, well, I used to deliver this maternity training course or this neurology course face-to-face to 25 or 30 people. How am I going to start to do that going forwards in the new normal? And I think this is really pivotal, where we start to leverage some really key features and functionality of the Webex solution. So breakout rooms definitely is something that we're working with a lot on at the moment. Utilizing PowerPoint design concepts to promote annotation and interaction for virtual engagement is definitely one that is going to be utilized a lot going forwards. And finally, the secure data and file transfer of information around white papers and case studies in relation to the topics that are actually being trained and utilized across the trust. And then recording, the ability to be able to take these really versatile face-to-face sessions, build them into virtual, and then take them to more or less be the new norm. I think we're going to see a lot more virtual learning delivery going forwards and possibly less classroom. But I think that's something that we'll start to see in the future. So I think that pretty much covers everything, Cole. I don't think I had any more to add. So if there's any questions.
For me, I think something great to add would be, as this is a community sponsored event, if you will, if you guys haven't already, you guys have to see the incredible material that Mark has so kindly put into the community, different resources based on training, events. He's got the whole gamut of resources in there. So absolutely recommend, and we can share that here in the chat here in a moment. Materials he's made, but he's made a lot of materials that have been put into the community, and we're absolutely grateful for the resource that he shared with the public. So thank you, Mark. I really appreciate that presentation. Is there anybody that has any questions on this presentation? If not, we can go ahead and jump into the moderated discussion led by our own Molly DeBow. Molly, are you there?
I am. Thank you so much. Gosh, Karen, Munu, and Mark, thank you so much for sharing just your transition and your journey so far. I literally have like 30 questions. So I'm really excited that Cole set up the after session for us. So the next 2 weeks, I'll be peppering my questions in, not only for our presenters today, but for our entire community. So I have a rapid fire first question that's going to be your limited to one sentence, super fast, and every single presenter is going to answer. So I've been part of the Webex family for something like 15 years now, and I've never, ever seen adoption, deployment, utilization take off so fast. So I wanted to ask each of you, and I'm going to start with Mark, keep you on the spot since your throat's probably still warmed up.
Sure.
What surprised you the most in your organization during this last couple, maybe 3 months or so?
I think for me, it would have to be how quickly non-IT literate staff have really grasped how intuitive and how quick the Cisco Webex technology is, and have started to utilize it in their day-to-day working practices. Perfect. Which is fantastic for us going forwards. It makes my life a lot easier. For sure.
And Karen, I'm going to have you do the same rapid fire question.
Yeah, well, I would agree with Mark, but I'd also say the thing that's maybe surprised us most is that our whole company is really appreciating IT right now.
Absolutely.
So it's awesome.
That's great. And Munu, same question for you.
Yeah, so Karen, I keep telling my team, I'm like, for a brief period, plumbers like us are absolutely in the spotlight, and so take advantage of it, take their bows, and be super happy. I agree. I think for me, the fact that our colleagues have so quickly risen to the challenge of a fundamentally different way of working, talking to our customers, working with our partners, working with our colleagues, and done that with a smile on their face and with a level of passion has been, I think, just phenomenal, right? Everybody is rising to the challenge of the day, of the week, of the month. And they're just doing whatever it takes to support and serve our clients. That's been the best thing. Yeah. And I don't call it a surprise. It's just been the best thing to see.
Yeah, and I would say the same over here, just how fast stuff has been changing and just the resiliency and innovation that I've seen in our employees and also for every single organization I've had the privilege to work with and interact with. All right, so Karen, I'm going to go to you for this next question. You opened your presentation by talking about Under Armour's values and just the company culture. How do you foster and maintain the company culture now that we're online?
I think that is that's something that leaders across our company are thinking about, because it's a very, very strong culture that is very immersive, and I can tell you that there are a lot of sessions, that there's a lot of leadership encouragement. There are lots of kind of leadership town halls, and really I would say probably a more focused effort than ever before to make sure that we are connecting with our teams, that we're doing kind of the cross collaboration, the things that you would normally talk about while you're heating up your lunch in the kitchen microwave. Those things are all important, and I think as leaders we are all really focused on and talking a lot about among ourselves how do we kind of keep that energy, how do we not let work become transactional, and keep that energy. So I don't have an answer. I would say it's something that that our leaders are really focused on.
Yeah, it seems like at the forefront. And when I've been working with customers recently, I've noticed a huge shift in the business goals. It used to be they'd say, okay, gosh, our number one objective is more stuff, faster, more money. And now the things that I'm hearing from leaders are employee well-being, inclusion, health, connectedness. So Mark, I want to ask you, what's the responsibility of the employer to the employee in this next normal? And then how does technology help and maybe hinder that, if at all hinder?
Wow, there's a question. It's a great one, Molly. I think in relation to where we are as an organization, I think the momentum of where we are is going to definitely enable that focus and that level of care, because the beauty of the Webex technology is it allows you to drop in on people and check up on their well-being. And I think that is something that's starting to be fostered. I think it's something that our leadership have definitely started to think about and started to consider. I think I don't have a definitive answer right now, but I think it's definitely something that our workforce and our leadership will definitely try to maintain in the future, though.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I kind of think that how do you then, all of you mentioned the idea of measuring productivity, and it's easy to measure people minutes, or we had a lot of meetings, or we made more money. I think it's incumbent upon all of us as leaders also to think about different ways of measuring satisfaction, health of our employees. It's not just about using the tool, it's about using the tool to allow the employee to bring their full authentic selves to work. And I would imagine in the healthcare industry that is something that's forefront for you, Mark, and kind of making sure.
It is, definitely. Patients and patient care is our number one priority in the overall scheme of things. And one of the initiatives that we put in place recently was, because a lot of people were on lockdown and in isolation, we did a volunteer request to get a number of iPads so that staff who were in isolation could stay in touch with family members. And that's made the wealth of difference to not only how we look after our patients, but the patient's view of us giving the healthcare. And they're very responsive to that, and they're very appreciative of that. And it's these kind of initiatives that we'll just keep building on.
Definitely. And Muna, when you talked a lot about moving to this new better, and I love that. It's not about this change for the sake of change. It's how do we improve it? Gosh, when I'm working with organizations, a thing that we have a challenge with is, okay, we used to do this in person, and now I want to do it online. How do we help people move when experience used to be in person, online, and not just make it a one-for-one? We actually address the business need and then push it further to make it move from maybe there's something that was in person, now it's online. How do we move it to the next better?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, I think the first phase of this was, well, let's do video, right? And at least we enrichen the experience versus being just on a call. And so I think we've all taken that step. Again, when you look at Mark's presentation or Karen's presentation and any of the statistics, we've all done that. I think for us going forward, is we're going to have to figure out a way to leverage that video experience with the asynchronous connectivity that comes out of it, with synchronous, with collaboration, and that's what's going to allow us to do this. Because I haven't talked to any company that says our travel budgets next year are going to go right back to where they were, right? There's not one that said that. I haven't heard of conferences that are going to come back and be 50, 60,000 people big anymore, right? So, Molly, it's a great question. We've taken our first step. I think the second step is you're going to have to be able to provide a continuous level of engagement with your colleagues, with your partners, and with your clients. And I think you're going to get to a place where the relationships actually deepen, and they go from just being professional constructs to personal and professional. Just like our work from home or working remotely, lives have become professional and personal. I may wake up at 5 in the morning and get a whole bunch of stuff done, but then I may take care of my 3-year-old from 7 to 9, right? And then I may hand her off to my wife or our nanny, and then I might come back later, right? So I think we're all figuring this out, but I do think that we're marrying professional and personal in a way that we haven't historically, and I think that'll happen with relationships as well, especially the physical relationships we used to have.
Yeah, something that was pointed to me that you brought up in your presentation is the idea that we're seeing a lot more people work more, and that to me as a person, I feel that I'm here at home, you're in my office, you're in my kitchen, you're in my living room. I think it does bring that sense of deepened authenticity. How do we encourage, support, and then require, I don't even want to call it work-life balance, I want to have it be that work-life harmony. That it's not about a 50-50 split, it's about being present when I'm here and then present when I'm with my family. Any tips on like forcing that and making people
I mean, and so at least from our perspective, right, we've actually built an operating model. It is extremely deep in nature. It includes the work side of it, but to your point, it includes all the well-being components of it, the mental side, the emotional side, the physical well-being side, and what we're trying to do is there is no one answer. Molly's work-life balance is different than Suzanne's and Karen's and Mark's and Munu's. And so what we're saying is we need to work individually. So as leaders and managers, we need to ensure that we allow our colleagues to think through the plan that's optimal for them and for the company, and that we allow them to do that. But we need to have a construct around that. And I think Aon, what we've built so far is, I think, phenomenal. And like I said, we're not only using it ourselves, we're actually advising our clients with those capabilities and that operating model and platform as well.
Yeah, it's good. So my little plug is, I feel like that our leaders say, yeah, we're gonna have work-life balance and harmony. How do we encourage our leaders to actually walk that walk? Because it's difficult as an employee to have my leadership tell me to do one thing when they're maybe not doing that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll tell you. I'll give you my personal story, right? So I threw myself into work. I was working as much as I could because there was nothing else to do, right? And I didn't realize, I thought I was actually fine. I didn't realize I needed time off. And finally at one point I took 3 days off before in the US Memorial Day holiday weekend, and I had no clue what I was going to do. But I found stuff to do. I didn't binge on TV, and I told my team, I'm like, start taking time off. Like, you have to. And then told a larger organization, take time off. Because we don't realize the impact all of this other stuff is having on us, but it is, and you need to disconnect. And so that was my own personal story of what I did. But it's propagating through the organization, right? When they see a leader doing it and then they force the next levels, then it becomes easier to do it.
Yeah, I think even for me as individual contributor, having my leadership share their story or their truth or their authentic self helps me then see that. And I think the technology for me does break down what we used to consider to be these walls. And even I feel like Teams does that as well. So it used to be, there's a hierarchy of when I can contact someone. I feel within our organization, there's less of that. Cole, do I have time for one more question, or do you want to open it up for all the other things you have going on?
So we probably should wrap it up.
Yeah.
I hate to cut you short. I just wanted to go ahead and wrap it up if that's okay with you guys.
I'm going to ask all my questions, right? So the next step, Cole, is just asking all their questions in the community, because all of the panelists will be available to be answering the questions for next couple of weeks, right?
So we don't necessarily have the panelists answering the questions in the community, but of course we have like our staff, we have other community members that are there to help share their stories as well as help contribute to the conversation. But something I really want to give a shout out to is as we're thinking about the next normal, our team, more specifically our friend Emily Brennan, and has been leading this charge towards creating a comprehensive guide to the next normal. If you can see in the chat, I went ahead and shared the link to that, which helps give you some steps, really trying to help move your business forward and try to keep your people safe as well in the process of doing so. So go ahead and check out that guide. That will also be posted in the community. But as Molly said, the conversation is absolutely set to continue within the community. So please share what your organization is doing, ask questions what other organizations are doing. We really want to give you the resources to be able to make your way into the next normal I have for you guys today. So I want to thank all the panelists for being here today, and thank you, Molly, for helping contribute to the conversation. I think this was very fruitful. And once again, this recording will be posted in the community. So everyone, thanks for coming. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, everyone. So
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.
bye.
Thank you.